I wanna hear old Jimmy skin the blues again. Don't wanna hear that latest Nashville train. Give me that Martin guitar and Gibson mandolin. I wanna hear old Jimmy skin the blues again.
You can see with the decal put on, after it dries, it's easily visible. The outside edges and around the letters and everything. Almost looks like a piece of Scotch tape laying on there. But once I put another coat of clear lacquer satin over the top, it'll be almost barely noticeable. Yeah, it just fades it all away, covers it up except for the gold lettering. And of course, before I do that, this is the second or the third coat. We have to go ahead and do our usual tack clothing. Very important to tack cloth these things, because I'll tell you, there's all kinds of stuff in the air and that collects on these radios after they've been coated with their first coat of lacquer. So I'll go ahead and tack cloth it down real good, very lightly. Remember, when you tack cloth, very lightly. Don't do it hard. You don't want that sticky stuff on the cloth to get on the finish. Alright. Remember now, these tack cloths are very expensive, so you can use them over and over and over. Just roll them back up, put them back in the bag, and roll them up real tight so they don't dry out. They will dry out. Just roll them up nice and tight and put a rubber band around them. Just like that. And then they'll keep for a long time like that. But you know, don't just use them once unless they're completely filthy after you've you know, tack clothed a radio or two. But if they're not all that dirty, and you know, you can use them many times. And as promised, you can barely even notice the outside border of that decal now. They just fade away with that clear lacquer finish over the top. The screws that hold the speaker to the cabinet, the heads also need to be painted. I've already wire brushed them up real clean, made them look real good, and got any corrosion off of them. I found over the years the best way to paint screws is to go ahead and take your old pocket knife and punch a hole through a cardboard box top, and then just put your screw down in there, let it hold it straight up. Just like that. This sun is not cooperating with me this morning, camera wise. Let me go ahead and punch another one here. Just punch you a hole down in there. You can make a little X if you want. It doesn't really matter. Then just take the old screw and put it like that. Instant screw holder for painting. We'll just shoot a couple of coats of perfect brown on it. And after that's done, we'll put a little satin clear. It's going to take a couple of coats of the toner. Then we'll put a little clear over it, and that'll be done. You know, no big deal. I know some of you have been wanting to see what this speaker cloth is going to look like when it goes back into the cabinet. So what I'll do is I'll just set it on the screws for now. I won't be putting the speaker on quite yet, putting the speaker in quite yet. So I'll go ahead and put it up in there, and then we'll turn it around. Well, there she is. I had to make a few adjustments. It wasn't quite fitting the way it should be, but I took my little moto tool and kind of reamed out each of the holes a little bit and did a little moving left and right and up and down till I got it. And it looks pretty good right now. Once I get the speaker in, it'll collapse the backing against the front of the radio from the rear, and it'll tighten it up even tighter. It's going to be real nice looking, I think. I'm getting ready to mount the chassis into the cabinet, and before I do, I wanted you to see these will be the mounting washers. I ordered these from Renovated Radios, and I'm not so certain I got the right one. It looks awfully thick. But anyway, it'll sit right there on top of that hole, and the chassis will sit on top of it. And here's the other one for the other hole. And these are called eccentric chassis supports. Now in your Philco radios, they have these studs sticking out in your 620, 630s, and I imagine 650. I've never worked on a 650. I don't know. There may be others. But these are studs which hold the chassis in the cabinet. They support the chassis. And they go in these large holes up here. The bottom stud fits into there, which is that one there, and the top stud goes here, but it requires a rubber support, and that rubber support goes onto there. These are called eccentric chassis supports, and the reason they're called eccentric is you can see the hole is off center. See how it's off center? Both of them. Now the way this is done, I found the best way to do it is I'm going to take a little bit of lithium grease. I'm going to just put a light film of grease on that one and on this one. And then I'm also going to put just a little bit inside here with a Q-tip in each of these eccentric supports. Then put your support in first before you slide your radio in, like so. Get them in position like that. If you put them on here and then try to slide it in, invariably it is not going to hit the hole properly, and you're going to wind up tearing up these supports. And I assure you, they are not cheap. They're made out of gum rubber, and they damage easily also. So let's get a little bit of grease on there and get these things mounted in there. Alright, I just got done greasing that up a little bit, and I'll probably put a little bit more in here just so when it hits, I don't want it to tear up that gum rubber. Lithium grease, it's a good quality grease that I got from a friend of mine. It's just a very thin coating, just enough to, hopefully that stud here and here will just slip right in those holes. Now once they get in, then I'll go ahead and lift the back of the chassis up and put the washers in. She's in, and she's bolted down. There's the two bushings. I guess those bushings are going to work after all. Those gum rubber bushings, they flatten down pretty far, but you don't want to squeeze them down to nothing. You know, give yourself a little bit of space there. You got to kind of even it up a little bit back and forth. And now all we have left to do is spin this baby around and put some knobs on the front. Before putting your knobs on, make sure you put felt discs over the top there. It'll protect the cabinet from the back of the knob, you know, rubbing against the cabinet and destroying the finish behind it. I make my own. I just take a flat metal washer and, you know, lay it on some felt, and then take a pen and, you know, mark it around in the center and on the outside, and then I go ahead and punch the hole with the old paper punch, and just punch it, slip it down in there and punch that hole. Works great. The coarse adjust knob has a much larger backing, and it requires a much larger piece of felt, so you have to cut it, slide it over the top there. Now don't go without this, because it will tear up your cabinet as they turn. These felt discs are very important. Now, you don't want to do all this work on your cabinet, which I hope will look much better than mine, but you don't want to do all that work and then have it all messed up by the knobs rubbing around it. What do you say we finally, at long last, put this poor old radio back on its feet once again? And I'm going to do that by using these stick-on felt pads that are 1 inch in diameter, and I buy them at Lowe's. Just use the holes as your guiding spots. That's where the old legs were in, the old metal kind that scratched everything up after the felt wore out. I always take those out and go with these pads. These are stick-on pads. After you peel that white paper off, you just got to kind of center it up there and place it on, and then press it in place. Works great. All my radios have these nice soft felt pads. Now this is just the kind I use. You can get the kind that screws in. You can hammer them in with a nail, which I don't advise doing. Probably the screw-in kind would work good if they had small threaded shafts. I like these little stick-on types. They stay there, they don't move, and they don't scratch anything. Let's get the rest of them on. And there you have it. 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. And if they ever mess up or tear up or who knows what, all you got to do is peel them off, put new ones on. Nothing to it. Well, as you can see, that piece of cracked glass right there is still there. I wanted to take this thing apart and redo this frame, but this glass is in 3 pieces. After I cleaned it, I could see that the crack is in 3 pieces, and I decided to just leave it the way it is. I'm trying to get a hold of Mark Opat. He's been on vacation here lately, and ask him if he might have a whole new setup like that. I'd like to have a new dial glass, or if I can't get the dial glass, I get the glass and the frame. But there's where we stand right now. The last item on the agenda, the very, very last item, now that this baby's on its feet, is to go ahead and put a little polish on it. And you know, some people, they go out and they spend big bucks on wax and polish and all this stuff, and not me. Not me. I'd rather spend the money on another radio. I use what my mom always used and my wife always used. Old English scratch cover. Works great. You just put it on there and it makes it, it protects it. You got to buff it off. Okay, you know, you can't let it just dry on there. You know, and never spray speaker. I mean, never use spray polish on a radio, because the spray polish will go through the speaker cloth and onto the speaker cone. Always put, if you want to use spray polish to polish your radios, put your spray polish on the rag and then apply the rag to the radio. That's what I'll be doing with the Old English scratch cover. Whatever kind of polish you use on your radio, just make sure you don't go whole hog. You know, it doesn't take a whole lot to really shine these things up with that, once you've got that lacquer finish on there. And it'll look really nice. It'll protect it. It does, you know, gloss it up a little bit from what the satin is. But, you know, I'd rather have a little bit of protection on there than none at all. So I'll be working on this for about another 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes. We'll get back to you. She has dings, she has dents, and she's been battered and beaten. But you know, she lives to play another day. And that's what we're going to do with it tonight after the sun goes down. We're going to turn this thing on and hope it'll play. I've had radios where I've completely restored them and they've played fine, put them all back in the cabinet, turn them on, and nothing happened. Let's hope that doesn't happen with this radio. This one deserves to be put out there on my workbench where everybody can see it. Everybody can make comments on it, good or bad. You know, I don't expect everyone to like vintage radios as much as I do, or many of us. Well, I'm pretty happy with this one, folks. And I appreciate everybody following along with me from the beginning to the end. If you learned one thing, then all my efforts will have been positive as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, I wind up with a nice little radio out of the deal. I think it looks pretty good, you know, compared to what we had. Next project will be the beginning of that 1952 RCA television. Some of you have an interest in TV, some of you not. But we'll go ahead and get that baby hopefully playing and putting a picture on. I'd like to see some old Jackie Gleason, you know, honeymooner shows on that old black and white TV. Some of you young folks don't know what Jackie Gleason and the honeymooners were. Look it up. He was pretty funny. Until then, I appreciate everyone once again. Thank you very much. This is John signing off on this 1936 Philco 630B restoration series.
Someday when we meet up yonder, I want to hear old Jimmy skin the blues again.